You know why I'm shooting an S-Log2 right now? Because the RX0 was just released. So the reason why this is so exciting is it's much more than an action camera. A lot of people have been comparing this to the GoPro, and to be honest, in the beginning, when I heard that Sony's tiny little RX0 was going to be $698 in comparison to the GoPro $499 new GoPro 6, I was hesitant, and that's why I've kind of waited to make a video on this. But I've learned it's much, much more than a GoPro, and I'm gonna let you know why. The goal of the RX0 isn't for Sony to make a GoPro, but think about having this Sony RX100 that personally I shoot almost everything with. If it's not shot with the RX100, it's shot with my Sony A7S II. But basically what the RX0 is this in a very tiny, compact form factor. I've done so many videos on this thing, so if you're curious about buying the RX100 point and shoot, I will link some of those videos down in the description below. The second week of September, actually the day of the Apple event, I had the opportunity to go to a press release event here in New York City for this camera. There I learned the basic specs: 15 megapixels in movie mode, a f4 aperture, a 35mm equivalent 24mm focal length lens, so it's pretty wide, but it's not as wide as a GoPro would be. And this thing shoots slow-mo, like super slow-mo, just like the RX100. So of course you can shoot 1080 at 24 frames per second, but you can go all the way up to 960 frames per second in high frame rate mode. Of course, the higher the frames per second, the more kind of pixelated and artifacty the footage is going to get. But just because that is an option, it's very exciting. It's very similar to the RX100 menus in terms of choosing the different shooting modes that you want to shoot in. And then just last week, I went to a event for the RX0, and I got to hang out with some cool creative friends, and we actually got to test out these cameras with a lot of craziness going on. And that event is what prompted me to make this video, because this is a cool camera. Different things happening to shoot, but John brought his skateboard. So now he's against this backdrop that the BMXers have been on. Now he's an act. All of the rain is going on over there. I want to test the audio with this thing in selfie mode. So this is on a tripod. Maybe let's test the image stabilization. Walking. How is it? Do I sound good? There's loud music in the background. This is a pretty crazy camera. It has the same exact sensor as the RX100, and so they don't really want you to compare it to action cameras like the GoPro. You can use an external microphone with this camera. It is waterproof up to 33 feet, and then if you need anything more, there is a waterproof case, and it is also shockproof up to 6.5 feet. I'm gonna throw it to John.
Ready? Resist it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, well I think it passed the shock test.
Totally on purpose. I was glad we tested that intentionally.
The craziest thing about the RX0 is it has almost the same exact sensor that is in this camera right now, a RX100, which is just insane. And then it also has different picture profiles and features S-Log2, which is huge if you're talking about big movie productions or big movie studios who need something small, an action camera that isn't a ton of money, but they can still make it look good with the rest of the footage that they're shooting on with their red cameras and all of their just like fancy RE cameras. This is going to be their go-to. If you have ever tried to color correct GoPro footage to the same color as the footage you're shooting with your RX100 or your Sony A7S or your red cinema transformer, I don't know what they're called, the red cameras, but it's difficult. It is very hard to get GoPro footage to look similar to the look of other camera footage. A lot of that has to do with the GoPro's tiny sensor and the lack of flexibility that the Kodak has. Whenever you try to color grade it and manipulate it to the look that you want, the footage falls apart. Also, quick side note, if you want to learn a little bit more about why 4K isn't necessarily the most important thing for your camera to have, how color science is important, you can click on this video I did with Peter McKinnon. It's a good one. Speaking of 4K, this camera does not shoot 4K internally, which was actually kind of shocking to me, but you can record it externally, hook it up via HDMI, and then you can also use the Sony app to link up 5 of these cameras so they have like the same exact time code. Again, it goes back to these fancier productions that appreciate the features of synced time codes. My first impressions of this camera was, what? It doesn't record 4K internally and you expect me to spend $700 on this thing? Heck no. But second impressions, as I went to the event, I played around with it. It is a very impressive camera, and now my brain just thinks of it as a RX100, a cheaper, actually, RX100 that is put into this little tiny casing that you can do cool stuff with. So you have to ask yourself, if you want a smaller camera, an action camera, is the Zeiss lens and this beautiful 1-inch sensor on the RX0 worth it? The slow-mo looks beautiful, but you might not need that certain look, or maybe even just the RX100 in a smaller form factor. Really think about what you're going to shoot, and you could probably shoot that with a RX100. Now, when it comes to mounting onto people and mounting onto things, that's when it gets interesting, but I want to do some videos, a full-on review of the RX100 and also the GoPro 6, because there's a lot of interesting things that are happening there as well. So make sure you subscribe, let me know if you like this video, and I'm definitely going to be putting out more videos about these cameras that are coming out. So many cameras and phones. It's so overwhelming, but it's exciting. And for the ladies and fellas out there who purchased some Peachy merch, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. It is no longer on sale. Drop number 1 is finished. However, that means you guys are going to be getting your shirts soon, in a couple of weeks. So make sure to follow the Instagram Peachy merch and tag me and send me stuff, because I want to post you on the Instagram. This is when the fun begins. Let me know what you thought about this thing, about this tiny camera. What were your first impressions? Are you gonna cop one? Anyways, again, let me know if you like this video. Hit that subscribe button down below for new videos every week. Become a part of the Peachy fam, and I will see you in the next one. Until next time, stay peachy. Okay, bye.